Hello, everyone. You step carefully through a cold Pleistocene forest. Frost crackles beneath your feet, and the smell of damp earth mixes with the fading scent of yesterday's campfire. Somewhere beyond the trees, a wolf howls. It is not the distant cry of a monster, but something strangely familiar. The rest of your group freezes, gripping sharpened wooden spears. Yet one wolf does not disappear into the darkness. It lingers just beyond the firelight, watching you with curious eyes. Neither side knows it yet, but this silent encounter may begin one of the greatest partnerships in human history. What if dogs were never truly domesticated in the way we usually imagine? Archaeological evidence suggests that wolves may have taken the first steps themselves, gradually becoming companions, not through conquest, but through cooperation. It is a possibility that continues to reshape how scientists think about the origins of humanity's oldest animal partner. For thousands of years, people believed that ancient hunters captured wolf pups, raised them by hand, and slowly transformed fierce predators into loyal companions. It is an appealing story. After all, humans have long imagined themselves as the architects of nature, shaping wild creatures according to their own needs. But something did not quite fit. Modern wolves are incredibly difficult to tame. Even those raised from birth by experienced wildlife specialists rarely behave like domestic dogs. They remain cautious, independent, and highly sensitive to strangers. As they mature, many become unpredictable, displaying instincts that generations of human care cannot erase. If modern wolves are so resistant to domestication, how could Ice Age hunter-gatherers, who struggled daily simply to survive, have succeeded where modern experts often cannot? This question puzzled archaeologists, evolutionary biologists, and animal behavior researchers for decades. Then another mystery appeared. Dogs are not simply tame wolves. They differ in their skull shape, facial muscles, digestive systems, hormone regulation, reproductive cycles, and perhaps most importantly, their social behavior. These differences accumulated over thousands of years, suggesting that domestication was not a single event, but a remarkably long evolutionary process. This realization shifted the question entirely. Instead of asking how humans domesticated wolves, researchers began asking something much more surprising. What if wolves were already changing before humans ever intended to tame them? That possibility has transformed the scientific conversation. Today, genetic studies overwhelmingly indicate that every domestic dog alive descends from ancient gray wolves. Yet identifying exactly which wolves, where they lived, and when they began changing remains one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles. Some genetic evidence points toward Eurasia more than 20,000 years ago. Other studies favor regions of Siberia. Still others suggest Western Eurasia. Archaeological discoveries have produced ancient canine remains from Belgium, Germany, Siberia, and other locations, but no single site has settled the debate. Rather than revealing one clear birthplace, the evidence paints a picture of repeated interactions between humans and wolf populations spread across enormous landscapes during the last ice age. This uncertainty is not a weakness. Instead, it tells us something important. Domestication may not have happened in one dramatic moment. It could have emerged gradually in multiple places, wherever humans and wolves repeatedly encountered one another under similar environmental pressures. To understand why these encounters became possible, we need to imagine the world they shared. The late Pleistocene was unlike anything humans experience today. Massive ice sheets covered huge portions of the northern hemisphere. Temperatures fluctuated dramatically over thousands of years. Vast grasslands stretched across Europe, Asia, and North America, supporting enormous herds of mammoths, bison, horses, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, and musk oxen. For both humans and wolves, survival depended on following these migrating animals. Their lifestyles were surprisingly similar. Both species lived in highly social groups. Both relied on cooperation. Both communicated using complex vocalizations and body language. Both cared extensively for their young. Both hunted prey much larger than any individual could defeat alone. This remarkable overlap did not guarantee friendship. In fact, it made conflict almost inevitable. Humans and wolves competed for the same food. A freshly killed reindeer represented weeks of precious calories. A mammoth carcass could feed an entire human band, or an entire wolf pack. Every successful hunt attracted scavengers. Every abandoned campsite left behind valuable scraps. At first glance, these two predators should have remained bitter rivals. And yet archaeology hints that something else began happening. Excavations at prehistoric campsites reveal scattered animal bones bearing both human butchering marks and carnivore tooth marks. Sometimes wolves reached carcasses first. Sometimes humans did. In many cases, both species fed from the same remains at different times. This pattern repeated itself again and again across thousands of years. Neither species completely displaced the other. Instead, they learned to exist in the same ecological neighborhoods. That simple coexistence may have been the first essential step. Here's where evolution often surprises us. Natural selection does not reward only strength. Sometimes it rewards curiosity. Imagine two young wolves approaching the edge of a human campsite. One is extremely cautious. The smell of smoke, strange noises, and unfamiliar creatures sends it running back into the darkness. The other hesitates. It keeps its distance but notices discarded bones lying just beyond the reach of sleeping humans. Those scraps require no exhausting chase across frozen plains, no dangerous confrontation with mammoths, no risk of injury from antlers or hooves. Only patience. Only courage mixed with caution. The slightly less fearful wolf gains extra calories. It survives winter a little more easily. It raises more pups. If that tendency toward reduced fear has even a small genetic component, its offspring may inherit similar behavior. Generation after generation, wolves comfortable living near humans could gradually become more common. No human plan was required. No deliberate breeding program. Only countless tiny evolutionary advantages repeated across centuries. This idea became known as the self-domestication hypothesis. Many researchers now consider it one of the most convincing explanations for the earliest stages of dog domestication, although important questions remain under active debate. Interestingly, we see similar evolutionary patterns elsewhere in nature. Animals living near humans often become less fearful over time. Urban foxes tolerate city streets. Some birds nest beside busy roads. Certain wild mammals alter their behavior to exploit predictable human food sources. These modern examples do not prove how dogs evolved, but they demonstrate that natural selection can rapidly reshape animal behavior when new ecological opportunities appear. For ancient wolves, human camps represented something entirely new: reliable food, predictable shelter from larger predators, a landscape where intelligence mattered as much as aggression. But food alone cannot explain why wolves eventually became dogs. Something even more extraordinary was beginning to change, not just in their bodies, but in their minds. And that transformation would forever alter the course of both species. Long before wolves looked different, they may have begun thinking differently. That distinction is crucial because evolution almost always changes behavior before it changes appearance. A slightly shorter muzzle or a curled tail offers little advantage on its own. But an animal that reacts with curiosity instead of panic, that can tolerate unfamiliar sounds, or that can read another species' intentions more accurately, suddenly gains access to opportunities that others miss. This is where everything begins to change. Imagine another winter evening on the mammoth steppe. A band of hunter-gatherers has just finished butchering a large reindeer. The richest cuts have already been carried back to camp. Bones, skin, and scraps remain scattered across the snow. Nearby, a small group of wolves waits in the darkness. The boldest wolves move closer only after the humans leave. Night after night, season after season, the same cautious routine repeats itself. Neither side fully trusts the other. Neither side intends to become partners. Yet each encounter teaches something. The wolves begin recognizing human movements. They learn when hunters are likely to throw stones and when they are simply walking past. They discover that smoke often means food. They notice that children are less threatening than armed adults. They learn the rhythm of camps, migrations, and seasonal hunting grounds. Humans are learning as well. Not every wolf behaves the same. Some remain dangerously aggressive. Others keep a respectful distance. A few appear unusually calm. Those calmer wolves become predictable. Predictability is valuable. An unpredictable predator is terrifying. A predictable one becomes part of the landscape. Archaeological evidence suggests that this gradual familiarity unfolded over many generations rather than within a single human lifetime. No one would have noticed the slow transformation as it happened. Parents simply raised children in a world where certain wolves seemed slightly less fearful than those remembered by their grandparents. Natural selection was quietly doing its work. One of the strongest pieces of evidence supporting this idea comes from an unexpected source. Not wolves themselves, but foxes. In the mid-20th century, Soviet geneticist Dmitry Belyaev began one of the most famous domestication experiments ever conducted. Rather than selecting foxes for appearance, strength, or intelligence, researchers chose breeding animals based almost entirely on one characteristic: reduced fear of humans. The results astonished scientists. Within surprisingly few generations, many foxes not only became friendlier, but also developed physical traits commonly associated with domestic animals. Some displayed floppy ears. Others developed shorter snouts, spotted coats, curled tails, or changes in breeding cycles. Their stress hormone responses shifted as well. Researchers continue debating how directly these findings apply to ancient wolves, since foxes and wolves have different evolutionary histories. Nevertheless, the experiment demonstrated an important principle. Selecting for behavior alone can unintentionally reshape the body. This phenomenon is often called the domestication syndrome. Its exact biological mechanisms remain under investigation, but scientists suspect that changes affecting early embryonic development, particularly cells known as neural crest cells, may influence a wide range of traits simultaneously. In other words, selecting animals that are less fearful may trigger a cascade of unexpected anatomical changes. That possibility helps explain one of domestication's greatest mysteries. Humans may never have consciously bred wolves for floppy ears or shorter faces. Those features could simply have emerged as byproducts of selecting animals that tolerated human presence. Yet even friendliness was not enough. To become true companions, early proto-dogs needed another remarkable ability. They had to understand us. Today, domestic dogs possess an extraordinary talent that many people take for granted. They follow human pointing gestures, they interpret facial expressions, they recognize emotional tones of voice. Some studies suggest that dogs often outperform even chimpanzees at reading certain human social cues. This is astonishing because chimpanzees share far more DNA with us than dogs do. Why would descendants of wolves become specialists in understanding humans? Some researchers believe the answer lies in thousands of years of shared survival. A wolf that correctly interpreted human intentions avoided unnecessary danger. A wolf that recognized when hunters tolerated its presence gained access to food. Eventually, animals better at reading human behavior left more descendants. At the same time, humans also benefited. Imagine hunting across endless frozen plains without binoculars or modern technology. Detecting prey first could mean the difference between eating and starving. Wolves possessed extraordinary hearing. Their sense of smell far exceeded anything humans could achieve. They noticed predators before people did. They tracked wounded animals across enormous distances. Even before intentional domestication, simply following wolf movements might have helped human groups locate herds or avoid danger. Some researchers suggest that early interactions resembled loose ecological partnerships rather than ownership. Neither species controlled the other. Both simply exploited each other's strengths. Over generations, those relationships could gradually deepen. The wolves that remained closest to humans became increasingly tolerant. The humans who accepted their presence discovered unexpected advantages. Eventually, the line separating scavenger from companion became difficult to define. But cooperation always comes with challenges. Living beside humans exposed wolves to completely new selective pressures. Campfires, children, crowded camps, loud noises, competition with other wolves, new diseases, changing diets. Only the most adaptable individuals could thrive under these unusual conditions. Diet turned out to be especially important. Gray wolves are highly specialized carnivores. Their digestive systems evolved for meat-rich diets. Dogs, however, are noticeably different. Genetic research has revealed that domestic dogs possess adaptations related to starch digestion that are far more developed than those found in wolves. Some studies have identified increased copies of genes involved in processing starch, particularly as humans later adopted agriculture. Exactly when these changes appeared remains debated. The earliest dogs likely still relied heavily on meat. But as human diets diversified over thousands of years, dogs evolved alongside them. Instead of chasing every meal themselves, they increasingly survived by eating what humans could spare. This was more than convenience, it was coevolution. Humans changed the environment. Dogs adapted. Dogs became more useful. Humans welcomed them further. Each change reinforced the next. Little by little, two species began shaping one another's evolutionary future. Yet there remained one final obstacle. Sharing food is one thing. Sharing trust is something entirely different. And that trust would eventually produce evidence so moving that archaeologists still speak about it with awe thousands of years later. Trust leaves almost no trace in the archaeological record. It cannot fossilize like bone. It leaves no imprint in stone and no mark on ancient tools. Yet every so often, archaeologists uncover discoveries that seem to preserve not just a skeleton, but a relationship. One of the most remarkable examples comes from Bonn Oberkassel in Germany. Around 14,000 years ago, during the closing stages of the last ice age, 3 individuals were buried together: a man, a woman, and a young dog. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary prehistoric grave, but a closer examination tells a much deeper story. The young dog had suffered from canine distemper, a viral disease that would have left it weak, feverish, and unable to hunt or even feed itself for weeks. Veterinary researchers studying the bones concluded that the animal could not have survived that long without intensive human care. Someone carried it. Someone protected it. Someone fed it soft food while it slowly recovered. This was not a wild wolf scavenging around the edge of a campsite. This was an animal worth saving. Whether it ultimately recovered or not, the effort itself speaks volumes. Caring for a sick animal consumed valuable food and precious time, resources that Ice Age hunter-gatherers could never afford to waste casually. That discovery suggests something extraordinary. By 14,000 years ago, at least some dogs were no longer viewed simply as useful animals. They had become members of the social world humans inhabited. Yet archaeology tells an even older story. In northern Israel, at the Natufian site of Ain Malaha, archaeologists uncovered a burial dating to roughly 12,000 years ago. There, an elderly individual had been laid to rest with one hand gently placed on the body of a puppy. It is an image separated from us by more than 100 centuries, and yet it feels instantly recognizable. Across cultures today, people grieve for their dogs, celebrate them, and consider them family. Looking at that ancient burial, it becomes difficult not to wonder whether similar emotions already existed long before cities, kingdoms, or writing. Of course, archaeologists are careful not to project modern feelings directly onto prehistoric societies. Burials can carry many symbolic meanings, and scholars continue to debate their precise interpretation. Even so, these discoveries reveal that dogs occupied a place unlike any other animal. No evidence suggests that mammoths, deer, or wolves received similar treatment. Something fundamentally different had emerged. By this point, humans were no longer simply influencing dog evolution. Dogs were beginning to influence human evolution as well. Imagine setting out before sunrise to follow migrating reindeer across frozen grasslands. A dog detects movement long before human eyes can see it. Its nose catches the scent of wounded prey carried by the wind. Its ears hear distant hoofbeats buried beneath layers of snow. Instead of relying only on human senses, hunters suddenly possess an entirely new sensory system. Some researchers suggest that this partnership may have improved hunting efficiency, especially when tracking large game across vast landscapes. Dogs could locate animals, pursue fleeing prey, or help prevent wounded game from escaping into dense forests. Exactly how early dogs participated in hunts remains debated, but there is little doubt that their abilities complemented those of humans in remarkable ways. The partnership extended beyond hunting. Dogs likely warned camps of approaching predators. They may have alerted families to unfamiliar humans arriving in the night. Even their presence alone could discourage scavengers from stealing precious food. Over thousands of years, these practical advantages accumulated. A group protected by attentive dogs might lose fewer supplies. A successful hunt could feed more children. More children surviving meant larger communities. Larger communities spread farther across new environments. The partnership between humans and dogs may therefore have influenced not only daily survival, but the broader expansion of our species across the world. This idea remains difficult to measure precisely, yet many researchers believe dogs played a meaningful role in helping humans adapt to diverse landscapes after the Ice Age. And while humans were changing dogs, dogs were quietly changing humans too. Living alongside another intelligent social species required communication unlike anything that had existed before. Humans learned to recognize canine body language, a raised tail, flattened ears, a warning growl, an excited bark. Dogs, meanwhile, became increasingly skilled at interpreting human gestures, eye contact, posture, and emotional tone. It was not simply training, it was mutual adaptation. Thousands of generations spent reading one another created an interspecies relationship found nowhere else in nature. Even today, neuroscientists continue exploring this remarkable bond. Brain imaging studies have shown that when dogs interact positively with familiar humans, both species can experience increases in oxytocin, a hormone associated with trust, bonding, and social attachment. Researchers continue investigating exactly how this process evolved, but the findings suggest that the emotional connection between humans and dogs has deep biological roots. Perhaps the most fascinating question is not why humans love dogs. It may be why dogs evolved to love us back. No other large predator has followed the same path. Lions never did. Bears never did. Wolves that remained wild certainly did not. Only one lineage crossed the invisible boundary separating fear from friendship. Only one predator gradually exchanged competition for cooperation. That transformation reshaped ecosystems, altered human societies, and ultimately produced more than 400 recognized dog breeds living around the world today. Yet despite thousands of years of selective breeding, every Chihuahua, Great Dane, Border Collie, and Siberian Husky still carries the genetic legacy of those ancient gray wolves standing cautiously beyond the glow of an Ice Age fire. The differences are astonishing, the connection remains undeniable, and perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this story. Domestication was never a simple tale of humans mastering nature. It may instead have been a rare evolutionary conversation, one in which two intelligent species slowly learned to trust each other, until neither could imagine the future alone. If you return to that frozen forest where this journey began, you can almost hear the distant howl once more. The fire still crackles. The cold wind still moves through the trees. A curious wolf still pauses at the edge of the light. This time, however, you understand that neither species can see what lies ahead. One cautious step closer will eventually lead to villages, farms, cities, exploration, rescue missions, scientific discoveries, and millions of homes where dogs sleep peacefully beside the descendants of those same ancient hunters. Sometimes history is not shaped by the loudest battles or the greatest empires. Sometimes it begins with two strangers deciding that the darkness beyond the fire is less frightening when they face it together. That single decision, to tolerate rather than attack, may have changed the destiny of both species more profoundly than anyone living at the time could have imagined. Unlike horses, cattle, sheep, or goats, dogs were not first valued for milk, meat, wool, or transportation. They entered human society long before agriculture transformed the world. In fact, archaeological and genetic evidence consistently places dog domestication thousands of years before the first permanent farming villages appeared. That timing is remarkable. It means the world's first domesticated animal emerged not in fields or barns, but among small bands of hunter-gatherers moving across Ice Age landscapes. Why? Perhaps because dogs offered something no other animal could. They did not simply provide a resource, they became partners. A horse can carry a person. A sheep can provide wool. A cow can produce milk. But none of these animals evolved alongside humans during the harshest chapters of the Ice Age as fellow predators, solving many of the same survival problems. Dogs were different from the beginning. Both species depended on cooperation. Both communicated through complex social signals. Both protected family members. Both shared food within their groups. Both relied on learning rather than instinct alone. In many ways, wolves were already living a lifestyle surprisingly compatible with our own. Some researchers even describe wolves as ecological competitors that gradually became ecological allies. It is a transformation almost without parallel in the natural world. Of course, many mysteries remain. Scientists continue debating exactly where domestication first began. Some genetic studies point toward Eastern Eurasia. Others support Western Eurasia. New archaeological discoveries continue to challenge older assumptions. It is even possible that early domestication occurred in more than one region before different populations eventually merged. Ancient DNA is revealing new pieces of the puzzle almost every year, but the complete picture remains unfinished. That uncertainty is an important reminder of how science works. The goal is not to defend one permanent answer. The goal is to refine our understanding whenever new evidence appears. The story of dogs is therefore still being written. Every newly excavated campsite, every ancient skeleton, and every improvement in DNA analysis adds another sentence to a partnership that began tens of thousands of years ago. Yet one conclusion has become increasingly difficult to dispute. Dogs did not simply change because humans wanted obedient animals. Humans changed as well. We developed new ways of hunting. We adapted to new environments. We formed emotional bonds with another species unlike any that had existed before. Together, humans and dogs created one of evolution's greatest success stories. Not through domination, but through mutual adaptation. And perhaps that is why this relationship has endured for so long. Even today, a dog can understand the direction of your pointing finger, recognize the emotion in your voice, wait patiently beside you, and celebrate your return after only a few hours apart. Those behaviors are not accidents. They are echoes of countless generations spent living side by side. When your dog looks into your eyes today, you are not just seeing a modern pet. You are looking into the descendants of those cautious wolves that once lingered beyond the glow of ancient campfires, wondering whether humans were enemies, competitors, or something entirely new. Likewise, when we smile back, we are responding with instincts shaped by thousands of years of shared history. The partnership that began in silence continues every day. It survives in search and rescue dogs finding people beneath earthquake rubble. It survives in guide dogs helping individuals navigate the world. It survives in herding dogs moving livestock with astonishing precision. It survives in detection dogs identifying diseases, explosives, and endangered wildlife. And it survives in the simple comfort of a dog resting beside its family after a long day. Few relationships in history have lasted as long. Even fewer have reshaped the evolution of both participants. So if someone asks why dogs became the first domesticated animal, the answer is probably more profound than humans tamed wolves. Archaeological evidence, genetics, and animal behavior research increasingly suggest a different possibility. Two highly social hunters, facing the same unforgiving ice age, gradually discovered that cooperation offered a better chance of survival than endless competition. Neither species could have predicted where that first cautious encounter would lead. But from that moment onward, the story of wolves was no longer only the story of wolves. And the story of humans was never only the story